Hello YouTube viewers and Star Wars fans of all ages. This is the TF Fan Geek coming to you with what will hopefully be a quick collection video. The reason I'm doing this video is because this Thursday, the 25th of May 2017, marks the 40th anniversary of when Star Wars was released in movie theaters for the first time back in 1977. Wow, 40 years. Yikes. So, today with me I have my collection of Star Wars Micro Machines Action Fleet toy line of toys. And these are Star Wars vehicle toys that were released throughout the mid to late 1990s around the time of the 20th anniversary of Star Wars. And so to start off, I actually have quite a few Star Wars Action Fleet ships. In my opinion, they are the best spaceship vehicle toys, Star Wars toys to ever be released. So here I have all the spaceships that were flown by the Rebel Alliance and Luke Skywalker. And what all these ships have in common are features such as opening cockpits, working landing gear, and also little mini figurines that can sit in the pilot seat. So I only have 6 of them left out of all the ones I used to have. I have Princess Leia, I have 4 Rebel Alliance pilots. I think this one I'm holding is supposed to be Luke Skywalker, and I also have 1 Imperial TIE Fighter pilot. So I only have 6 of the actual little figurines that these spaceships used to come up with left, and here inside the X-Wing I only have 1 Astro Droid left. But I'm just amazed at how detailed these ships are in hand. And when you play around with these Action Fleet vehicles, some of them really do look like they jumped off the screen from the movie. Now, I did play with these toys quite extensively a lot, so they are nowhere near mint condition anymore. They've been played as much as Star Wars toys can be played with. Some of them have parts that have broken off, unfortunately, such as the Snow Speeder. I lost one of its engine thrusters. And here on the B-Wing fighter, one of its twin laser guns on the wings broke off several years ago. I tried to super glue it back on, but by the time I was able to buy the super glue, I lost the laser gun. What are you gonna do? So just to give you a rundown, I do have the Rebel Snow Speeder, and there's the open cockpit gimmick. Again, some of the spaceships have other parts that open besides the cockpit. Here on the Snow Speeder, both sides of these intake vents can be open. Actually, I don't know if they're intake vents, but those open up. And here on the Blockade Runner, there's its open cockpit. The laser guns do rotate, but they're kind of frozen in place. So does the deflector dish. And then this little panel here on the back opens up as well. It's been so long since I opened it, it just went crooked on me, right on camera when I'm filming. Give me a break. And then here's the Y-Wing. Y-Wing, the gun on top rotates, the cockpit opens up, but it's really stiff right now, so I don't want to try and force it. The B-Wing has quite a few gimmicks. It was one of the, at least in one of the later waves of the Action Fleet vehicles, and so the cockpit rotates, the wings open up, and as you can see, it's so old it actually clicked on me, the wing here, and it's not supposed to click. Now all these spaceships, in addition to little figurines that went inside the cockpits, also had display stands that you could have them sit on top of, and as a kid I didn't really care for the display stands, so a lot of them got lost. The ones that I did have, I think, give away at yard sales or to charity, but yeah, these spaceships have definitely seen better days. And here's Luke Skywalker's speeder that he flew around on Tatooine. And one cool thing Hasbro did is the wheels on the bottom that allow you to actually roll the speeder around are made out of clear plastic, so it looks like it's actually flying. I think that's really cool. And because it doesn't have a closed cockpit, instead what you can do is open up this one engine and see the inside of it. It doesn't like to stay open now, but used to when I first bought it. Take a close look at the X-Wing. The wings do fold open and shut, but I opened and shut the wings so many times as a kid, the springs are kind of shot now. It's unfortunate, but I think it's proof that this toy has been loved. Open cockpit as well. And you can take the pilots. I said before this might be supposed to be Luke Skywalker. Sit him in. As you can see, the pilots sit comfortably inside, and they are size accurate compared to the spaceships. And then, really fast, here's the A-wing. Its laser guns kind of bent. They're made out of rubber instead of actual plastic, so that doesn't help. Cockpit opens up, and this rebel pilot right here, you probably can't tell, but it's in a different colored suit. This is actually the A-wing pilot. I still remember the day I bought this. They were nice enough, the toy designers, to give these little Action Fleet figurines that came with the spaceships suits that match the ones that the real-life actors wore in the actual Star Wars movie. So when it comes to the Star Wars Action Fleet vehicles, I believe the purpose of them was for vehicle toys that were screen accurate. I think that's what the toy designers were. Their focus on was screen accuracy, and as far as a gimmick, the gimmick of open cockpits, I think it's enough of a gimmick for me. Now, unfortunately, some of you probably haven't heard of these Star Wars Action Fleet vehicles before. That's because by the early 2000s, sales were starting to drop, so Hasbro decided to ultimately just end the Star Wars Action Fleet toy line. And also, the Action Fleet was an extension of the Micro Machines toy line. That's why that's evidenced by the size of the pilots, how tiny they are. And unfortunately, once Micro Machines started to fall all out of popularity and ultimately got canceled, all the other toy lines based off the Micro Machines came to an end as well, and that included the Star Wars Action Fleet, unfortunately. So here on the Millennium Falcon, it has a rotating satellite dish. Cockpit opens up, and one cool thing about the Millennium Falcon, the gun turret here on top opens up, and so you can put a figurine inside there if you wanted. And then here on the back, you open this up, and there's the cargo bay, and then open this one up, see if it opens up, and there's the hidden compartment for smuggling. So that's really good. And then here on the bottom, the lower laser gun rotates as well. Now, unfortunately, the Millennium Falcon did have another gimmick where a missile shot out of the front center of the spaceship. It was made out of clear red plastic, and the button's still there to fire it. And unfortunately, as a kid, in my mentality, I wanted to make the spaceships look as screen accurate as possible, and the front of the missile would kind of stick out a little bit, and it just upset me so much as a kid seeing a red missile sticking out of the front of the Millennium Falcon when that wasn't on screen whatsoever. So I took the missile out and never bothered to put it back in, and today that missile is now long gone. So if anyone comes across the Star Wars Action Fleet Millennium Falcon on eBay, just keep an eye out for one that has that red missile, because that's probably one of the accessory pieces that the Millennium Falcon came with that you may or may not be able to find right away. Now, some of you have noticed the smaller vehicles here up front, and for the X-Wing fighter, the Snow Speeder, and the B-Wing, they were some of the Star Wars Action Fleet toys I got that were known as the Alpha series. And basically, in addition to all the additional accessory pieces, in the Alpha series Action Fleet, what you got was a little plastic spaceship of the vehicle in its prototype phase. So this is the prototype version of the Rebel Snow Speeder. And I don't know why, I've always thought it just looked like the cockpit of the Y-Wing, just cables separating off, and I think that would have been a cool gimmick, that the cockpit of the Y-Wing could separate from the rest of the ship and become an emergency escape ship if it wanted to. So yes, that's what the Alpha series of the Action Fleet spaceships, where you got a little plastic version of the prototype of the ship before the final version. And so here's the B-Wing fighter, and on the B-Wing, as you can see, the bottom half of the spaceship was supposed to be another cockpit. So the B-Wing fighter was actually supposed to fly sideways like this originally to incorporate a Another pilot there. And then here is the Alpha Series X-Wing fighter. There's not much of a difference to the prototype of the X-Wing versus the final product, except for maybe the shape of the intake thrusters. Here on the final X-Wing, the intake vents are full circles, and here on the prototype, they kind of split in half. And with the release of Star Wars Episode 7, they finally designed the engines on the X-Wing to look like that, so I don't know. I think for Star Wars Episode 7, The Force Awakens, where the X-Wing is depicted in that spaceship, it's almost like what film designers wanted the X-Wing to originally look like back in 1977. So there are all the spaceships flown by Luke Skywalker and the Rebel Alliance, along with the last of my little actual figurines and my collection of Alpha toys. Oh, and I almost forgot. My apologies. This little miniature version of the Y-Wing Starfighter is from another toy line that was spun off from the Micro Machines. This is from the Star Wars Titanium line of toys. Titanium series, for Transformers fans, as you know, was a line of Transformers toys that were made almost entirely out of die-cast metal. And if you watch TJ Omega's review of Titanium G.I. Joe Megatron, shout out to you, TJ Omega, that video is awesome. Awesome. The Titanium toys started out as a line of die-cast spaceship vehicles based primarily off of Star Wars and other science fiction films and TV shows. So this is the Y-Wing. I saw it one day at Walmart, and I wasn't aware that there was in fact an Alpha series of the Y-Wing Starfighter, which came with a little plastic version of the prototype. I never saw it at stores. It was always sold out whenever I would visit the toy store to buy a Star Wars Action Fleet vehicle, so I decided to buy the titanium version of the Y-Wing Starfighter so I could have a Y-Wing the same size as the X-Wing and the Snow Speeder and the B-Wing. The Y-Wing has always been my personal favorite of the Rebel Alliance's fighter spaceships. And so it's really nice having a die-cast metal toy because it's the closest you can get to having the actual spaceship. So a quick pause in the video while I bring in my collection of spaceship vehicles owned by the Empire, because let's face it, Darth Vader along with Luke Skywalker made Star Wars extremely awesome. Alright, and so here's my collection of Imperial Starships / vehicles, and also just bad guys in general, because I do acknowledge that the Jawa Sandcrawler technically is not a Empire vehicle, but the Jawas aren't that heroic, so I just include the Sandcrawler along with villains' vehicles. Now, unfortunately, I had even worse luck but collecting the Imperial's TIE fighters and vehicles than I did the Rebel Alliance. When I was a kid, I wanted to army build the TIE Fighter and the TIE Interceptor, and unfortunately I never got around to it. Now, the reason why I do have 2 TIE Interceptors is because I bought the TIE Interceptor in its own individual package before I found the 2-pack with the Millennium Falcon, and so I figured if I had 2 TIE Interceptors, then at least I'd have at least one Empire vehicle that I army built. I did technically army build on the Imperial Walkers too. This one here is the standard Imperial Walker, and I got the Alpha series, so there's the prototype of the Imperial Walker, what it looked like before its final appearance in The Empire Strikes Back. And then I also have here the motorized Imperial Walker. Simple control. These buttons allow you to have the Imperial Walker move either forwards and backwards, and because it's supposed to be motorized and walk, the legs are wider spread than the standard Imperial Walker. But they both look really similar with the TIE Fighter here, so you can see the Imperial Walkers next to each other. My apologies for not doing that sooner, but just like with the Rebel Alliance spaceships, all these Imperial vehicles have the same gimmick. We have an open cockpit. See if I can show that off here on Darth Vader's. So there's that. And then here on Darth Vader's spaceship, you have this one back panel behind the cockpit that can slide on and off, and so if you want to do a stop motion video, you can make it look as though Darth Vader's TIE Fighter has been battle damaged. Here is the standard TIE fighter, and there's that little, don't know if you can see in there, there's that little TIE fighter pilot. I put it in here. And the TIE fighter has a weird gimmick where you pull down on the back and then you can slide this piece off, and there's the main power core engine, I'm guessing, for the Imperial TIE fighter. It's just funny, the gimmicks that the Imperial spaceships have. And then here on the Imperial Walker, the motorized Imperial Walker has the same exact opening panels. You open this up for the cockpit, and then this is really cool. I've always felt you open this up and there's a little platform that the Imperial snowtroopers can walk on and off. That's really great. These rails are really flimsy. I never touched them really with my fingers, so that's why they're still intact. And then the guns here on the side rotate up and down, and it's the same thing with the Imperial Walker, so I won't show it off. And then here on the TIE Interceptor, it has the same opening cockpit, and then TIE Interceptor has a really interesting gimmick where you rotate this. On this one it's a little worn out, but you rotate this back part of the ship and the wings will actually open and close, so you can make the TIE Interceptor look in an attack mode and in a piloting mode. And then finally, even though the Sandcrawler isn't actually an Imperial vehicle, I don't consider the Jawas to be heroic by any standard, so you open the cockpit up and there's a control panel in there, and those are all stickers. If you can see in there, those are all stickers. Because some of them are starting to finally peel off with age, but some of them are still hanging in there. Then here on the front of the Sandcrawler, you open this up, there's a loading ramp to load droids inside. And then the Sandcrawler, because it isn't a flying ship, it's a rolling vehicle, it does have 4 little plastic wheels on the bottom, so it does roll really well. And then the front treads can actually rotate left and right, so if you want to do a stop motion video, you can have the Sandcrawler actually turning around. And then this one last side panel opens up, and there's the cargo hold where the droids are lined up in. If you look closer, there's a little orange button, and what that does is it actually has a conveyor belt that has the 3 molded in Astro droids on there going back and forth, so you can decide scrap them or not. So yes, there's my collection of Star Wars Micro Machines Action Fleet, Imperial Starfighters vehicles, and just all around villains vehicles, because I also have the Jawa Sandcrawler, and I think the Sandcrawler might have been one of the last Star Wars Action Fleet vehicles I bought. And then, before I forget again, just like with the Y-Wing, here is the Titanium series, TIE Fighter. I don't know if there was an Alpha series of the TIE Fighter on here. I know there was, definitely, with the Imperial Walker. And, oh, silly me, there was one vehicle I forget. Let me bring it out so I can show it off here. I forgot to bring out Darth Vader's Imperial Shuttle. I always forget to include this one with the Imperial spaceship vehicles, because in the last time you see this spaceship, Luke Skywalker's piloting it when he's flying away from the second Death Star, and so I just don't know. Because of the screen time that the Imperial Shuttle got, half the time it was being flown by Luke Skywalker or Han Solo, so I've just always felt that even though this shuttle was built by the Empire, it can stand as either a hero or a villain's spaceship vehicle. So the Imperial Shuttle does have the same open cockpit gimmick that all these ships have, and then the wings do fold down, and as some of you saw, the wings are a little old, or worn out, I should say. They used to stand up pretty solid in place, but like with this wing, you can see it just wants to give way a moment's notice. And then right here on the wing centers, these guns do rotate up and down, so if anyone thinks of coming from behind to attack the Imperial Shuttle, whoops, not gonna work, there's laser guns pointing that direction. So my apologies for not bringing the Imperial Shuttle out sooner. I did buy the Alpha Series version of the Imperial Shuttle, so I did have a little plastic version of the prototype of the Imperial Shuttle, and I do remember one of the main differences between the prototype and the final version is that the cockpit, instead of being this almost like vacuum-nosed shape, which is what I've always thought the nose of the Imperial Shuttle looked like the nose of a small vacuum. On the prototype version, this cockpit was a sphere and it was bubble-shaped, so I'll let you decide if you think the newer original prototype cockpit of the Imperial Shuttle was better looking, but I have since lost the Alpha Series little miniature prototype Imperial Shuttle vehicle. I think one of the wings might have broken off and I lost it. I don't know, it might still be in my family's garage. But yes, there's the Imperial Shuttle, and what I was about to say before I remembered I forgot to bring out the Imperial Shuttle was, here on the Titanium series of the TIE Fighter, you can open the cockpit hatch, and the pilot sitting inside is not removable. It is a sculpted little piece, and unfortunately the wings just flip it around back and forth. I think that's because it's metal wings attached to a metal body, so they don't actually stick in place that great. I did try to tighten the screws holding the wings in place, and it did nothing. So if anyone ever comes across the Titanium series TIE Fighter vehicle, just be careful on how you handle it, because it does feel like the wings want to fall off and stay falling off on that thing. Now, before we wrap this video, my apologies for it being longer than I wanted it to be, but I do have one last group of Action Fleet vehicles to share for this video review for the 40th anniversary of the first Star Wars movie being released in theaters, and I will bring out the last of my Action Fleet vehicle collection in 1 second. Alright, and just to wrap up this video review, here is the last of my Star Wars Action Fleet vehicle collection. Spaceships. These are vehicles that were all released in Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. And right before the Star Wars Action Fleet vehicles were cancelled, the spaceships from Star Wars Episode 1 managed to be given toys in this toy line. And I believe it was 1 or 2 years after, I can't remember the exact year, the Star Wars Action Fleet toy line came to an end, but it was right before Star Wars Episode 2, Attack of the Clones, was released in movie theaters. So unfortunately there are only 4 Star Wars films that have spaceships that were released in the Action Fleet toy line, so my Star Wars Episode 1 collection is the smallest out of all of them. This vehicle right here is a Naboo Speeder, and these missiles do fire out. I remember I actually got this at Disneyland in 1998. The Star Wars Action Fleet was one of the then Star Wars toy lines that released a preview toy line several months before Star Wars Episode 1 was actually released. And so here the bubble dome cockpit opens up, and as you can see there's enough room inside that you actually fit 4 of the Micro Machines figurines inside of it, and just like Luke Skywalker's Sand Speeder, the wheels underneath are made out of clear plastic, so it can make it look as though it's actually hovering over the ground. Here's Sebulba's Pod Racer. It's got clear wheels here on the back, and then it's got 2 orange wheels right here, and if you roll the wheel, it's the one here on the left side of Sebulba's Pod Racer. It might be hard to see, but as you roll Sebulba's pod on the ground, the electricity inside that keeps the 2 engines linked together can actually spin. Yeah, really cool gimmick. And one nice thing is that this whole middle section right here that keeps the cockpit tied to the engine is made of clear plastic, so it gives the illusion that just like in the movie, the only thing that's keeping the cockpit of Sebulba's Pod Racer to attach to the engines are the 2 cables, and it just it's really amazing how in 1998 and 1999, what year was Sebulba's Pod Racer released? It says, 1998, a year before the movie was released in the theater. Here, so I think toy designers had a lot more time, energy, and heart into the toys they were designing, and as I said earlier in the video, the Star Wars Action Fleet vehicles, the main gimmick gimmick was that they were screen-accurate spaceship vehicles, and then, as you can see, I have two versions of the Naboo Starfighter. This one over here is the first one that I bought, and its opening cockpit, just like in the movie, it slid forward and backwards. I tried to do it with this one a second ago, but it's really stuck, so I don't want to try and force it. And one day, the cockpit accidentally popped off and fell out of my family's car while we were driving on the road, so yeah, it's long lost. And it also had another gimmick where R2's head could, with the push of a button here underneath, can pop up and down, and so you can make it look as though the Naboo Starfighter has a landing position and a flying position. That's really great. The Naboo Starfighter did come with the, I believe, 12-year-old Anakin Skywalker as the pilot, and there was no other version that came with a Naboo Starfighter pilot, so yes, the Naboo Starfighter, along with the Imperial Walker and the TIE Interceptor from Star Wars Episodes 5 and 6, respectively, are essentially the only Army vehicles I managed to build that have stayed in my collection. I did have up to 3 versions of the X-Wing fighter, but the other 2 broke, and so I gave them away. And then, last but not least, here is the Trade Federation fighter ship Droid. Right, and so its wings open up, and because this is a droid that transforms into a fighter ship, you can move the cockpit section up and it becomes the droid's head. And one cool thing is that, just like in the movie, the wings do split open, and so the droid can actually walk around on 4 legs and like that, and trying to sandwich them back in together is really difficult, even more difficult than trying to separate them. But yeah, it does have that gimmick like that. And then here on the bottom is the Titanium series version of the Trade Federation droid fighter. It does have the wings that do open up and part open for attack battle mode, but I believe it's actually plastic pegs that are keeping the wings attached to the main cockpit fuselage of the droid. So if you do decide to find this toy on eBay and buy it, just be careful how you handle the wings. So in my opinion, titanium toys were a great idea, but when it came to execution, unfortunately, the toys didn't actually do as great as the ones that were made out of plastic. So yes, my apologies for the video being rather lengthy, but in honor of the 40th anniversary of Star Wars being a few days away from when I'm recording this video, I just thought I'd share with you my collection of my all-time favorite Star Wars toys. So this has been the TFN Geek. Thank you so much for watching, and happy 40th birthday, Star Wars. Thank you for being the greatest science fiction movie to ever be released, in my opinion.